Wendy, I'll let you take it away.
All right, great. Well, thanks, Hans. And I want to apologize to some technical difficulties on my end this morning. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself and then start to provide an overview of the project. As Hans said, my name is Wendy Kelly, and I work for the University of Wyoming Extension, serving as a state specialist focused on weather, climate, and agriculture. However, I'm fully funded by the USDA Northern Plains Climate Hub as a regional extension program coordinator. So I coordinate efforts throughout a 6-state region. Before I dive into my presentation, I do want to share a little bit more about the climate hubs as a whole, and then more specifically about the Northern Plains. The climate hubs were announced on February 5th of 2014 by USDA Secretary Vilsack. And today there are 10 regional climate hubs that cover the United States as well as the Caribbean. And we, here in the Northern Plains, we cover, as I said, 6 states, which are Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Nebraska. And the Northern Plains Climate Hub is stationed in Fort Collins, Colorado. However, since I am a University of Wyoming Extension employee, I'm based in Wyoming, more specifically in Western Wyoming in a rural community called Pinedale. The climate hubs provide climate information that benefits agriculture and forestry, and we do this in a number of ways. And just very broadly speaking, to give you an idea, we do it through science synthesis. So, excuse me, for example, developing vulnerability assessments is one way that we synthesize the science. Additionally, we help to develop decision support tools or help to enhance or inform the development of decision support tools. And an example out of the Northern Plains Climate Hub region is a tool called GrassCast, which forecasts grassland production to help producers make an informed decision about what they might anticipate in a given growing season for their production. And then the third way that we provide climate information that benefits agriculture and forestry is through extension and outreach efforts. And so today I'm going to share one of the many extension and outreach efforts that we've been a part of here in the Northern Plains region, which is the Learning from Your Neighbor Climate Resiliency in Agriculture. And again, I'm having some technical difficulties on my end, and I'm not able to share my screen. I did pull together a PowerPoint presentation, but since I'm not able to share my screen, I have asked Hans to share his screen as I talk about the story map with you today. And so here in a few minutes, or in a few moments when Hans is able to share his screen, you'll see the story map on your screen. So as I started to work in weather, climate, and agriculture throughout the 6-state region, myself and several other extension professionals asked ourselves about when we need to make an important life decision. And so I want you to just take a moment to think and reflect on the last time you made a significant life decision, a life decision that could make or break you. Think about that for a second. Where did you go to learn more to make a more informed decision? Did you go to someone that you knew and already trusted to get more information or to talk through your options? Did you go to someone who's made a similar decision to the one that you were needing to make, or perhaps they were making a similar decision around the same time as yourself, and you could brainstorm again your different options? Or did you seek out somebody or a resource that's never made that type of decision and that you've never met? I know for myself, I typically seek out people that I trust or trusted resources or somebody that's made that type of decision in the past. And so that was something we continually brought ourselves back to as we started to work in climate, weather, and agriculture throughout the 6-state region. We also thought about the value of agriculture in the Northern Plains region. The food, the fiber, the fuel that come out of the region and provide for our nation as well as beyond. And the many ecosystem services as well that agriculture provides throughout the Northern Plains region. Did you know that a third of the U.S. pasture and rangelands actually are in the Northern Plains Climate Hub region, as well as a third of the irrigated systems as well? So there's a lot of value in the of agriculture throughout the Northern Plains region, and this was something that we also continued to keep in mind. So as we thought about and recognized that ag producers have, and they continue to face challenges with increased climate and weather variability and extreme events. So it's nothing new, it's something they've been dealing with. But as we're seeing more frequent, for example, droughts or heavy precipitation events, there is a growing need and importance for ag producers to adopt management practices to help themselves and their operations to be more resilient, their livelihoods to these different events and these different extremes that they're experiencing. That being said, I don't come from an ag background, and nor does my current livelihood depend directly on ag production. Yes, I work with agricultural producers, but I'm not out on the ground making these decisions. And so I didn't feel like I was the most well-positioned, nor my colleagues, to talk to producers about all the intricacies of the decisions that they're faced with making. As we think about, again, those decisions that we've made in our lives that can make or break us, and then we're asking ag producers to do these on their land and to be more resilient, we haven't had to think through it in the same way. And so we ask ourselves again, who are the people who have made these decisions? Who are the real experts? And it's really the ag producers themselves. So that was kind of the beginning of how the Learning from Your Neighbor project was born. The project started out as an initiative with myself at the University of Wyoming Extension, as well as other UW Extension employees and Montana State University and the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And it continued to develop in concept through an e-extension challenge that came out late 2015, early 2016, that was the I3 issue core effort. And the I3 was issues, innovation, and impact. And through this effort, we started to kind of fine tune and develop our thought process even more about this Learning from Your Neighbor project. But it really came to what it is today when the Northern Plains Climate Hub Extension and Outreach team put out a call for mini grant proposals. And we were successful in getting one and were able to also include North Dakota State University Extension, South Dakota, as well as Colorado State University Extensions. So the project I'm going to share with you today became a 6-state regional project that is the Learning from Your Neighbor Climate Resiliency and Agriculture project that you can see on your screen. And again, part of it was already born through the conversations that we were having and how we work with agricultural producers and working land managers throughout our region as it relates to weather and climate. But it was further inspired by by Roger's work in diffusion of innovation. And in Roger's work of diffusion of innovation theory, he talks about how more similar we are to people, or the better we can relate to them, the more that we are, that knowledge transfer will actually happen. It will be more easily facilitated. And the more, the easier we can relate to people, the more likely we are to adopt innovation. So that was part of our inspiration as well. So we set out to identify agricultural producers who had adopted management practices, whether if it was 1 year ago, 5 years ago, 30 years ago, that helped to make their operation more resilient. And they might have adopted these practices for reasons that had nothing to do with weather and climate or extreme events. Maybe it was a program through NRCS to not till their land, but since they had adopted no-till, they were now seeing the benefits associated with keeping some of that biomass on the ground, again, as it relates to weather and extreme events or changes in climate. So we wanted to go out, we interviewed these producers, we asked them to tell their stories about why they adopted the management practice and to tell us about the management practice, to share what worked well and what didn't work well, and what they would do if they were to do it again, as well as advice that they had for producers who were contemplating adopting these practices. So to date, we have interviewed 8 producers in 4 different states. We've written 2 fact sheets that kind of complement and expand on the producers' stories and the information that they share, whether if it relates to no-till or cover crops, whatever it might be. And in November of 2020, we rolled out our story map, which is what you see on the screen again, that brings together the videos of the producers, as well as the content, the written content and the fact sheets. And so it's a nice place to go to be able to see all come together. And again, I apologize that I'm having technical difficulties today, but I want to share, I'll start to read some of the screen and then I'll have Hans scroll down below. If you haven't already read though, I do want to just read the introduction of the story map. So working lands are the backbone of our nation, providing the food, the fiber, fuel, and other values such as ecosystem services and aesthetics. In other words, we all depend directly and indirectly on working lands. These lands and those who manage them face numerous risks year to year, season to season, and day to day, ranging from global and national markets to weather and climate. Many of these risks are ultimately out of the control of the working land managers. I think it's really important to acknowledge the value of agricultural lands. And I think that, the intent of the project initially was to connect the agricultural producers to other agricultural producers to learn from each other and create this network through videos, and then to have the complementary fact sheets. But as we developed the story map, we realized that there was another opportunity to provide information to other ag service providers, such as extension professionals, and having a resource where you could go and learn about these different practices that producers in your area might be contemplating adopting. So it's also intended for, again, the ag service providers, as well as potentially policymakers who are considering changing policies, or as well as the general public. And that's why we have kind of that introduction of providing an overview of the value of agricultural production. As you scroll down through the story map, as Hans has done, you can see that we have an introduction. We start to introduce you to the producers on the left-hand side of the screen with the written content. And on the right-hand side of the screen, the map has zoomed in more to the Northern Plains Climate Hub region. And there's a pin in the general location where we conducted an interview with different producers. And in some areas, we conducted a number of, we met with a number of different agricultural producers. So for example, in North Dakota, there's 2 pens that are relatively close to each other. And we have some additional videos that we're in the process of finalizing right now that eventually will also go in this area of North Dakota, kind of that southeast corner. So we were able to meet with a number of producers in that area. So this is a nice way to see the geographic distribution of the producers. And for a producer to say, okay, I'm in southeast North Dakota, and I'm doing no-till in a dry land system here. How does that compare to no-till in, for example, more southern Montana? So, there's very different systems. And if you're familiar with the region, there's a very distinct precipitation gradient from east to west. And so the no-till in those two systems would be might have some different ramifications or considerations. And so for those producers to be able to share their lessons learned from doing no-till from far east to more western part of the region. The other thing that we were able to add on here that I think is just a nice feature, and you can see it on your screen, is the radar imaging in the background showing kind of weather that's happening right now out in the different areas. So talking about a learning from your neighbor, climate resiliency in agriculture, and then having the weather radar information available there, I think is a nice added touch. So as you scroll down through the story map, you can see that it has the let's get started. And in this section, it is introducing you to the current overarching themes of the story map. And right now, I think there are 6 or 7 overarching themes, or maybe 8. It continues to build out as we add producer videos to the story map. And we add the themes, and from here you could click on, if you wanted, for example, climate and weather of the plains, and it would take you down to the written content as well as the complementing videos that are associated with that portion of the story map. Or you could look at the producer videos, which are down below. So the first one is Marvin Murdock of Orleans, Nebraska, and you can see there are several, I think 5 different categories that Marlin has videos associated with within the story map. Another feature of just trying to get you situated with the story map or how you could use it is to go over, for example, to Nebraska, and you see the pin drop. And if you click on the pin drop, it should pull up the bio for that given producer. So Hans has done that for us, and you can see up here that it introduces you to Marlin. So Marlin has an irrigated and dryland farm in Orleans, Nebraska. He primarily produces corn and soybeans, but also has alfalfa, wheat, and rangeland. Marlin has been doing no-till since the 1980s and attributes much of the farm's success to this change in management. So if you wanted to get just kind of a quick overview of each of the producers to figure out which producer and their operation might most resonate with yourself or producers that you work with, you could click on the bios to start to get a feel for them and their operation and the type of management practices that they might have adopted. And not to say that the bio is incomplete by any means. There's definitely more to their story. But it gives you a nice overview of that. So we're going to go ahead and continue to scroll down, and I'm going to share. Sorry, my chat's not working either with this platform for some reason. It's an issue with my computer. So I'm actually going to email one of the videos to Hans to pull up in a minute, but not right this second. So as you continue to scroll down, you start to learn about climate and weather of the plains, which is what Hans has up now. And I want to read again just a little bit of the text to you. I won't read it all. But the geographic location of the Great Plains creates a scenario for highly variable weather. In the shadow of the Rocky Mountains and thousands of miles away from any ocean, the middle part of the U.S. can have some of the most extreme weather in North America. Average precipitation ranges from less than 10 inches in western Wyoming and Montana to over 40 inches in southeast Kansas and Missouri. For Nebraska, the average precipitation ranges from around 12 inches in the west to near 35 inches in the southeast, with a statewide annual average of 22 inches. The driest year on record for Nebraska was 2012, when the average precipitation was 13.36 inches. The wettest year on record was 1915, with an average of 35.5 inches of precipitation. And I share this because again, the videos of the producers tell such a rich story that we wanted to also provide more of the data and factual information that we can provide in an unbiased platform to enhance their stories as well. Maybe it's for a policymaker to understand why something might work well in far eastern part of the region, but there might be challenges as you move further west because of the precipitation gradient that occurs again from east to west, or to help producers kind of remind them of that precipitation gradient as well if they need that reminder, or if they're not familiar with the region. I know we have a lot of new farmers and ranchers in different areas, and so helping them kind of wrap their minds around it too. I did share a link with Hans, and I don't know if it came through yet or not. It's to a YouTube video. And I want to introduce you to Joe Bracker. He's from near Rutland, North Dakota, and he's a dryland farmer, and he's one of the producers that we interviewed. Joe's videos are not currently in the story map. It's kind of coming soon, but I want, if you don't mind, Hans, to play this video. It's just over 3 minutes, and let Joe tell part of his story to the attendees.
I'm going to hit play and you let me know if you can hear Joe.
Great, thanks. We cannot hear him.
Okay. That means I need to do that and stop sharing for just a moment. And then I need to...
So the videos range in length from anywhere from about 4 minutes to 7 minutes per video. And I will share that we spent about 4 hours with each producer. So we would go out to the operation, get out, some producers wanted to sit down and do the interview, others wanted to stand and talk around a truck. We did whatever the producer was comfortable with, and we asked them all the same set of questions, initial questions. But of course, based on their responses, we would have different follow-up questions for each producer. And then once we finished the interview portion of the meeting with them, all the producers were so gracious with their time and would either drive us around or walk around their operation with us, or so that we could get additional footage for the videos.
I got it figured out. I just need to wait one more. Okay.
I appreciate you jumping in, and again, apologies for the technical issues. So as I noted, we do have several more sets of videos that will be uploaded, and Joe is one of the producers that were in the process of finalizing their videos. And the video that we hope to watch with Joe is final. We'll just be going through and kind of tagging the information and identifying where it will go within the content of the story map, and identify maybe potential additional content to write. So as we scroll further down through the story map, again, you can start at the top and you can always just click on the different categories or topical areas or the producers to be able to drop down automatically, or you can scroll from top to bottom. And you can see here Marvin Murdock and his first video. And below him is Greg from Montana. And I don't know, Hans, if it's worth trying to play directly in the story map, if it would perform any differently or not. If so, we could try Marlin's video there. We'll give it one shot, and if it doesn't work, it's okay.
Okay.
So you can click the play button that is on Marlin. And in theory, It would work. I don't know if the audio will work though, but. Nope, we can't hear it. That's okay, no problem. So I encourage you to explore the story map on your own. And I'm realizing as I'm saying this that you can't see the link to the story map. And so I don't know, Hans, if you're able to drop the link that I shared with you in the chat, because my chat was not working. I can try it again.
I'll totally do it right now. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So I encourage all of you to go through and explore. I was hoping to introduce you to a couple of the producers today that I had the pleasure to spend time with, and for them to share about their operation. And since I'm not able to do that, you can't see it on my screen, we'll share that link in the chat with you so you can explore it again on your own. Just to give you an idea of another one of the producers you saw a minute ago, down kind of below Marlin, is Greg. So Greg, he has an operation near Fromberg, Montana, and Greg has an irrigated farm. He and his father, their operation produced corn silage, companion crop with soybeans, followed by sugar beets and barley, which is followed by a cover crop mix. Additionally, they produce finishing cattle. And Greg's entire operation has been a minimum till system since around 2012. The transition from conventional tillage to minimum till took several years, with minimum tillage is needed to be able to dig up the sugar beets that are part of their operation. And Greg has a really nice video about why he does no-till that's included. And really, it was just kind of happenstance. And he shares that story of how he got into no-till. And he shares that they ended up not tilling a small portion of a field one year, and that part of the field actually performed better than the part that was tilled. And so then they played around with it a little bit more, and before he knew it, he became a minimum till operation. And in his video, he talks to the economics as well as the water savings that they've experienced. And this is a story that myself, I wouldn't be able to speak to. I don't have that story, I don't have that experience, but he was able to talk to it off the cuff and to be able to share that information with others who are considering adopting a practice. And this is in an area that is really arid compared to the further east part of the region where they do dry land, but have amazing crops that they're able to produce. Hans, when you get a moment, would you mind sharing your screen again of just the story map itself? So you can continue to scroll down through the story map and meet other producers, such as Rodney, that has a dairy farm in South Dakota, and such a fascinating story. Rodney and his family moved to South Dakota from Ireland, and he talks about when they made that move and why they made it and what they've been able to do in the time that they've been in South Dakota, and how they have been able to adapt their management to help keep the cattle cooler during the hot, humid summers, among some other really interesting bits of information from their operation. And then you just kind of continue to scroll further down within the story map, again, hearing from the different producers and hearing the stories that they have to share and the lessons learned. And it is, again, really invaluable. They can tell stories and lessons that I could read about, but it would take me years to be able to read about and to share. So we really appreciate all that they've done and how innovative so many of them have been, including Doug, who you can see his hands right now on the screen, and talking about doing a planting diversity of different seed mixes and experimenting around with that, and a challenge that he put out to other ag producers to help inform a seed mix that he did one time. And so throughout the story map, it's a great exploration, and this is definitely a living project. and one that would not be possible without the partners that we have with Extension and outreach throughout the 6-state region. Again, it included Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Colorado, and of course, Wyoming. The producers themselves are the ones who really made this project come to life, because they're the ones who are living it. They're the true experts out on the ground, and they're always looking to learn and to be able to share their stories with others. So with that, I just want you to take a moment to, again, think about the last time you had to make a life-changing decision, and who did you go to? Where did you get information from? I think that sometimes we ask agricultural producers to consider a practice and how it might work into their program, or maybe we don't personally, but there are practices that are encouraged, and we aren't always able to think about or think through all the pros and cons of it. And having these stories shared by the producers themselves, and recognizing that, yes, my farm might be different than yours or your piece of land, but these are things I thought through, or these are things I wish I would have done, is really helpful. As I mentioned just a moment ago, it is a living project. And so the future of the project as it stands right now, we do have some more videos that we will be posting to the story map in the coming months. We also have some additional content that is in final review to be added, some written content to be added to the story map. And we hope to write some additional content as well, as we have the time and the resources. That being said, we hope to be able to continue to capture and share additional stories in the coming years as resources are available. And those resources include willing partners. We need the monetary aspect, but we also need the willing partners of Extension and outreach, folks that have the working relationships with producers out on the ground and know who the producers are, who have adopted management practices, again, whether if it was last year, 5 years ago, 30 years ago, that through adopting these practices, they see that their operation is more resilient to weather, climate, and extreme events. Even if they didn't adopt these practices because of weather and climate, but since they have seen the benefits of it. So that is the other critical part, is having ag producers who are willing to share their stories with us. So I didn't take up as much time as I'd planned, because I was going to share some videos with you, but I'll just open it up for any questions that you might have. So I see a question that came in. I'm going to read it out loud. And it says, do the climate centers cross market to other states not served by their climate center? I live and work in Northwest Minnesota, and our climate is much more similar to the Great Plains than the Great Lakes states. So I think you're asking of whether or not we work across climate hub regions, and we certainly do, and we certainly partner with other climate hubs. We work closely with the Midwest Climate Hub, and on this effort, we haven't worked directly with them on the Learning from Your Neighbor project, but a grand long-term vision of the project that we did talk about, and it's come up over time, is if we had the capacity to be able to work with, for example, the Midwest Climate Hub, and if we took a similar approach to doing the ag producer interviews, and to be able to add their videos to the story map. It would be great to have one story map where people can continue to build to and add to. I was contacted, it's been a couple of months ago now, by the NRCS, and they have some amazing videos with ag producers already that we've talked about how could we get them added to the story map. And some of those videos are within the Northern Plains region and others are not. And for us right now, it comes down to, we don't have the resources to go through the videos to ensure that they meet the intent of the project. So that includes, it needs to have an ag producer in the video. and then talking about practices, management practices that they've adopted. And it could be a year ago, I've said this before, 5 years ago, 30 years ago, and being able to share some of their story. It doesn't have to have all the exact same questions, but kind of getting to the same intent of the project, of myself and the original project partners. So yes, absolutely. We do work across Climate Hub regions, and I would love to see this project expanded to other Climate Hub regions as resources are available.
Guess I'll ask a question since I don't see anything right away. Do you anticipate the recent announcement of the RFP for working with the hubs to expand your capacity or scope of work significantly, or do you envision any changes in work due to that particular announcement?
Yeah, so we definitely, again, I'm associated with the Northern Plains Climate Hub. We've certainly received several inquiries from different extension programs and colleagues throughout the Northern Plains region wanting to talk through ideas that they have. And so I think it'll be interesting just to see in the coming weeks and months of how that continues to, those conversations develop and unfold. I'm optimistic or hopeful that we're able to get some proposals in from the Northern Plains region and hopefully other extension programs throughout other regions. I hope they also are talking about and applying for the monies. I think it's a real opportunity for extension to partner with the climate hubs. And, from the Northern Plains perspective, I'll just kind of share a little bit more. The Northern Plains structure, as I noted from the beginning, I wear two hats, being an extension professional, but I also am funded by the USDA Northern Plains Climate Hub. And we're the only climate hub that has the coordinator position for the climate hub is housed within extension. And it's a really interesting relationship that's worked really well for our region. And we've been able to partner closely with extension throughout the 6 states for the most part since we started. And I see that this funding opportunity could really help to continue to nurture that here in the Northern Plains region, but also build those working relationships in other regions and developing projects that are really from the ground up. And so I'm excited to see where the projects go or the proposals go moving forward and which ones are funded.
Angie's got another question on the difficulty of making a story map using the ArcMap feature.
Yeah, Angie, so that's a great question. And I will answer it. I'm going to step back and explain a little bit more about the process of the story map and how we got to where we did. So again, we went out, we met with the producers, we did the filming. I was a videographer, and I was doing the interview kind of behind the videographer. After that, the videographer is a University of Wyoming Extension employee. So his name is David. David would go back. He and one of his assistants, Lindsay, did the editing of the videos. And then we also have another in-house professional with UW Extension in our communications team. Her name is Ann Tanaka. And Ann actually developed the story map for us. The one challenge that we had at the very beginning is that UW Extension did not have an ArcGIS paid subscription. However, the benefit of wearing the 2 different hats is that the USDA Agricultural Research Service, or ARS, which the Northern Plains Climate Hub is housed within, they had a license for the ArcGIS that enabled us to be able to use that story map software. So Ann and I were able to get accounts through the USDA ARS account to be able to build the story map. And Ann did most of the heavy lifting. I gave her some guidance on the design and which type of story map we wanted to use, because there's different kind of looks that you can select from, or templates. And I provided that information to her. She did the heavy lifting and really developing it. That being said, I do go in and it's easy enough for me to do editing and add some additional content as needed so that I don't have to take up more of Anne's time. The basic infrastructure there, I've been able to go in and manage it. Through the USDA climate hubs, we've also developed story maps, and it was my responsibility to go in and actually do the development of it for our, I think it was our 5-year report of accomplishments. And I found it relatively easy to navigate and to build it. You know, there's a little bit of a learning curve, but it was manageable. The biggest thing was the licensure for us at the beginning. I'll also add, I was not going to highlight the fact sheets in my presentation today, but just to kind of recap again that the story map brings the videos together along with the printed fact sheet, the written content, into one place. The really neat thing about this fact sheets that we also did is that whether if you look at them on a computer screen or if they're printed in your hand, is that we were able to use the technology where we embedded the video into a picture. So for example, if Greg is talking about no-till in Montana and the fact sheet was a no-till fact sheet, and we wanted to connect the reader to more information, if somebody was using their smartphone, similar to a QR code, we have the Erasmus code on a picture, and you could hover your smartphone over the picture with the Erasmus code, and a video would pop up diving deeper into the, to show the video with the producer diving deeper into some of their story and why they had adopted no-till or whatever the appropriate video was for that fact sheet.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see anything else in the Q&A or chat. So we'll go ahead and wrap up a little early this session, and certainly appreciate everyone's attendance. This has been a North Central Climate Collaborative webinar, and I did want to acknowledge that Monica Jean was an attendee today. She is on the leadership team for the North Central Climate Collaborative. I didn't want to make her a panelist without her knowledge, but I did want to acknowledge that. So I think Angie's got another question, but I'm going to go ahead and stop recording for the day. And thank you, everyone.